So let's start by talking about the first generation of AI. That's where we've been, and that's really, for the most part, still where we are. What is that first generation? The first generation of AI is really characterized by a few core things. First of all, large language models. And by that I mean the mega models, these giants, OpenAI, the Claudes, the Bards, the Geminis, Microsoft Copilot. These are gigantic solutions that require unbelievable resources to create, not just in terms of capital, but also in terms of energy, compute, time, human labor, human expertise. We've heard a little bit about data sets in some of the last conversations, and that's a really important point when it comes to this, building high quality data sets. We've generalized, we've said, oh, public and private data sets. Okay, public and private data sets are really different. The quality level is dramatically different. Private data sets that are being paid for and built by these giant organizations are purpose-built. They're very, very specific, and they're tailored to have a consistent voice, to have incredibly good responses to questions, and they're used to build high-quality models. The public doesn't have full access. Nonetheless, public models have improved and improved and improved. We heard about Jace earlier, phenomenal effort by G42. There's also Falcon in the region, another large language model effort. Globally, we're looking at Mistral, we're looking at Mixtral, we're looking at Facebook's Llama and their entire series of open source offerings. But all of this still hasn't gotten us to that promise of AI. What's going on and why not? Well, the first generation of AI is big. It's enormous. It's trying to do everything for everyone. It's about answering any question in the world. You open up GPT, you type in a question, you get an answer. You then sit down and you worry, is this answer accurate? Is this answer, does it sound like what I want it to sound like? Does it include, are there ethical issues with the kinds of answers that I'm getting? These are the types of questions that we typically ask about the first generation of AI. None of these are business questions. When we're looking for that impact, business actually is really important. And it's really important not just because businesses buy things, so do consumers, but because businesses produce the things that consumers buy. And so when we start asking ourselves, why haven't we achieved that promise? Why aren't we living in that futuristic world that we have seen in movies, et cetera? We have to take a step back and say, what's really going on? Are we actually meeting the needs and addressing the core business applications that are really necessary in order to advance the bottom line? Sure, but more importantly, advance the state of the world, advance the state of technology. And the answer is that the first generation AI doesn't do a great job of this. We've all seen at this point probably hundreds of companies that are GPT wrappers that take, OpenAI or one of these other large models and make some improvement in how they pull in data. Typically, the way a large language model pulls in data is a technique called RAG, that's retrieval augmented generation. It goes and does what's called a Google search, takes the up-to-date information, adds that to your question, and puts that into the model. We've seen companies trying to be more specific about that, work in a business place, but nonetheless, when I've gone out and I spend a lot of my time working directly with businesses to help them actually implement AI transformation, they're coming back and they're saying, this stuff is awesome for improving our sales force, for answering internal HR questions, for accessing low-hanging fruit like what's our revenue right now, answering simple questions, but it's not really moving the needle on the hard stuff. We thought this generation of AI was different. It was going to let us access and address the really hard problems. And that's really what brings us to the second generation of AI, the stuff that's just coming out now, and we're going to see more and more of over the next 12 months. And I'm going to talk about what's after 12 months later, but let's focus on the next 12 months first. The second generation of AI is very different. We've heard a lot. In fact, we just heard about giant chips that allow you to build huge language models. By the way, those guys are great, and I've worked with them in other spaces, so nothing there. But what I will say is, what we're seeing and what's becoming real in the second generation is going smaller. Smaller models, AI applications that link together small language models that are actually able to produce specific results that are focused and tailored to a business need, to an operational need. And this is what's coming next. What's coming next is a movement away from the one-size-fits-all everything to everybody model and moving towards a new type of technology that allows us to bring together the power of AI, but do so in a targeted and specific way that addresses business and consumer needs. And we're just starting to see that because there have been some fundamental technology improvements that have allowed this to happen. First of all, we've realized that small models can actually perform really well. And when we're talking small here, these are still pretty darn big. So a small model typically has, let's say, 7 billion to 20 billion parameters, right? The cerebral cortex in the human brain has 16 billion neurons. So these things are still pretty big, right? But they're nowhere near as large as these gigantic mega models. And the advantage of smaller models is that you can have specific training across multiple models that avoids issues like hallucination. It allows you to bring things on-prem, work within your business. This avoids data sovereignty issues. They can work in real time. The fine-tuning speed of large models is glacial, right? So you use techniques like RAG to pull in real-time data because you can't learn in real time. All of these things you can do in the second generation, and you can actually do them at scale to deliver business needs. Furthermore, in the second generation of AI has a different focus. If you think about traditional software, when we go out and build a software application, historically, what we do is we look for a problem. We say, hey, there's a problem, there's friction in a market, there's a need, and this need is shared. Lots and lots of people have it, lots of businesses have it, and I'm going to build a solution that addresses that shared need. You build it, and you go sell it, and you've got a great business. And congratulations, awesome. But that addresses the shared need, the part that's common. Unfortunately, what businesses have come back and told us is that's not our problem. Our problem isn't the part that's shared. Our problem is the part that's specific to us, that's unique and that's local. It's our business expertise, our processes, how we communicate with our customers, and how we internally have built our organization. That's what makes us successful. And AI is not helping us there very much because we're all getting the same we're all getting the same models, we're all getting the same results. Not so much with second generation. Unlike first generation, the second generation of AI extends that and actually addresses the specific needs, smaller models that are more tailored and that are focused on addressing the needs of a particular organization, a particular client. And so that really brings us to where we are today. Right now we're seeing the first pieces of second generation AI coming out. There's a couple in this room. I was walking around before and sort of talking to different companies. But you're starting to see organizations coming out and saying, we're not just wrapping OpenAI. We're not just a large language model provider. We're actually leveraging specific, localized, small models. And so the real characterization of today, the real theme of what's going on today is localization and specificity. It's building a model that looks at a human audit specialist and says, you are an absolute expert. Using second generation AI, I can access live data, not just linguistic data. I can look at all sorts of data feeds. I can look at financial data. I can look at time series data. I can look at global market data and bring all of that together and develop a system that emulates that specific expert. And that's incredibly powerful. In fact, that's transformative for business because that allows us to do the thing we've always wanted to do as software entrepreneurs, as both in business and in tech, and that's address that last 20 or 30%. Yeah, 70%, maybe even 80% of your problem is generic, and there are great solutions for that. But that last 20 or 30%, that's where your value typically lies, and we've never been able to address that with software. That's always been addressed with human expertise and human labor, and that's been unscalable. And that lack of scalability has been expensive, it's been challenging, and it's been one of the things that separates successful organizations from less successful organizations. organizations with strong HR, organizations that know how to train internally and build on their own internal brands, these organizations are typically successful. And they've been very poorly supported by technology, particularly the transformations that we've gone through over the last 20 years with the sort of explosion of data science, data analytics, and now AI. Finally, we have the tools that we need to address these types of problems, to scale real human expertise that's aware of not just the data within your organization, but global context, local context, in real time, and that's truly transformative. That's how we start to get towards the real promise of AI. But that's not where it ends. That's where we are today, but I told you that this is going to be coming out over the next 12 months. I also said we're going to talk a little bit about what's coming next, because what's coming next builds on second generation and continues to extend it. I've used the term AI a bunch, and it's a terrible term because nobody knows what AI is or what it means. AI can refer to generative AI, large language models, could refer to deep learning models, could refer to expert models, can refer to predictive analytics, statistics, random forests. There's an enormous range of things that fall into that umbrella. Right now, we typically mean generative AI. And generative AI has some niggling issues that we don't like to talk about much. It learns from people. The very best results that you get from generative AI are those of the best people. Even second generation, where you're learning human experts and expertise, the best you're going to do is as well as those human experts can do. And we kind of feel like that's not good enough. We've spent the last 20 years doing deep learning, trying to uncover hidden secrets within data that human experts don't recognize or don't know. So are we going backwards when we talk about generative AI? Are we backing off from deep learning, from some of these other types of techniques? We've had to a little bit, but that's changing. Right now, the very cutting edge of research, the things that are going on in deep tech and in organizations that are working on pushing second generation to its absolute limit, are linking these things together. They're starting to bring together, using the underlying transformer architectures and even moving away from language model architectures, they're starting to bring together different strands of AI so that you can use what we call generative AI, what we call transformer models. You can use them as a basis for world knowledge, but you can also do deep analytics, predictive analytics, looking into data sets, pull out those insights, ground them in the world, link those using small models, each one with a specific task, to create an ecosystem. And that ecosystem is what's starting to be called agentic process automation. So what we're really moving to, what's going on right now is a shift to a new type of way of working, a new kind of worker. And we've seen this before. Robotic process automation was all the rage in the 90s, in the early 2000s. We moved to predictive process automation in the mid 2000s. But now we have something that finally brings together the best of all of these, that allows us to humanize, localize, and contextualize what we're doing, while at the same time scaling, learning, and maintaining that knowledge across an organization. The term, and that really is what we're calling agentic process automation, where we're using small AI agents, each one its own mind, so to speak, that's learned from a specific human expert. We can put them together. We can have councils of agents. And what we're going to see, what we're seeing over the next 12, 18, maybe 24 months, is cases where the fundamental nature of work shifts, where the job of an expert is no longer to just have deep expertise and spend their whole day doing audit analysis, financial tracking, many use cases, but instead they're managing sets of AI agents. They're getting feedback, input from small agents that have learned their process and are working alongside them. They're tweaking them, disagreeing with them, and bringing their human expertise and their knowledge of the real world to the next level. Because there are still some things, despite all of this, that people do that AI just can't do. And one in particular, the most core, and the reason that human expertise is going to continue to be the absolute defining characteristic of business success, is intent. AI models do not have intent. They do not have goals. They do not have objectives. They will give you an output based on an input, but they are not able to use that particular output to change or manipulate a higher order outcome. People have goals and people have intent, and those people who are able to wield these AI tools to be the most successful are going to be the ones that are successful in business and have impact. A really concrete example here, the education space, that's my background. So I grew up in ed tech, and this is a space where everybody saw OpenAI and said, oh my gosh, we've done it, education's solved, the world's better. It hasn't been. And why is that? Well, the reason people think that is because they think access to information is the barrier to education, but that's never been the case. We made the same argument about 200 years ago when we created public libraries. We said we're going to give people access to information. That'll solve the problem. Everybody will be educated. It'll be a great new world, and it didn't work. And the reason is that humans, when they interact with each other, are intentful. A human tutor doesn't sit in the corner of a room and wait for you to ask a question. A human tutor doesn't let you finish an entire thought if you're going in the wrong direction. They guide. They have a mental model of what they're trying to do, and they mold the student. They push them in some places, they pull in others. And it's no different in business. Our business experts, the people who are truly great in their roles, they do so with strategy, with finesse, with intent. And that's something that, although we can mimic how a person responds to a particular type of problem using AI, the dynamism that people bring to an actual situation from a strategic perspective, that's what's next. That's what we need people for, and that's what we're building towards as much as we can by bringing together different types of AI. The role of the human expert is going to be the thing that separates businesses going forward. We've heard a lot about AI and AI uptake. This is a tool set. Understanding how to apply this tool set to your processes and to your business is the single most important thing. And we actually heard this from the panel just a minute ago. Somebody was saying it's not data scientists. Data scientists aren't the limiting factor. It's people that really understand the problems. And that's right. I like to tell people the locus of value has not moved. True value still lies in understanding your customers, understanding their pain, the problems you're trying to solve, understanding your internal KPIs and why those are KPIs. Generative AI is a massive leap forward in terms of allowing us to scale our expertise, to scale what we do today, but it is nonetheless a human technology. The second generation of AI is a new world in which we're able to localize, build smaller, build more specific, link those models together to deliver business value, to deliver consumer value, and to actually start to reach that promise that we all have in our head, the science fiction movies, etc. But to get there, we can't lose sight of how we use this technology as people, as intentful actors within our environments, be that as a consumer or as a business leader. But anyway, that's what I'm here to talk about today. More than happy to catch up with anyone afterwards, as always. But thank you for your time.